Welcome, my friends. Day 5 of the 10-day journey to self love and emotional healing. And today is a really big topic, and there's no way we're going to be able to cover it all. But today I'm talking about removing toxins from our lives. So far, we've talked about a lot of resetting ourselves internally and physically. We've talked about the body keeps the score. We've talked about starting where we are. And that's what today is really going to be about. Not only do we start with day 1 with quieting the inner critic, but there are so many other potential sources of toxic energy in our lives. And some of that is internal, and some of that comes from the external. So, the idea of eliminating toxins, I want to start with this concept because the idea of starting like with a war on toxins is not going to be particularly helpful. Instead of focusing on fighting the toxins in our lives, which just adds more energy and keeps us stuck in this energy of we have to be in a fight mode, right? We've spent so much time trying to get our nervous system reset, and let's think about our words and our thoughts today and start with this. We don't necessarily want to fight the toxins, we want to replace them. So, what we want to do is focus on what we want instead of on what we don't want. That's like a primary belief that we need to establish near the beginning. And we're going to start with where we are. And we're going to take one step at a time. And if there are places in our lives where we can leapfrog and we can do that from a positive energy and a loving energy, by all means, we want to do that. We want to be really careful about making choices and taking actions that are going to leapfrog us into a different situation if the energy behind that or underneath that is fear based or anger based. Because depending on how we're maneuvering our lives and our way of being, we can take that energy with us, and we're just going to create more of it, even if we can't see it in the beginning. That's often the case. It's not always the case, but just to have a sense of self-care around that, not fear, because we don't want fear either. But so we just want to be mindful of the energy and nurturing the energy of what we desire and trust the process that as we do that, the things that we don't desire will simply get overwritten. They will be overshadowed. We will grow into something different. And so we want to focus on what we do want. And we do that starting with our thoughts. And thoughts are words. And that's a whole nother subject, because images and energy are a part of that. And I would love to get into that topic, but it doesn't fit today. Today, we are eliminating toxins. We are overriding. We are replacing toxins. And we start with our words. So I used to have a very harsh inner critic. She still wants to show up every now and then, but her edges are so much more gentle now. And it didn't start that way. It actually, for me, started with words. It started with choosing one particular phrase, because I had this revelation that a situation that I don't like needs more love. I want it to change. I need that situation to have more love in it. Love for me, love for the world, whatever. And so I started replacing this favorite phrase I had, which was, I hate that, And that actually had lots of different words available to it. And I started replacing that with, I love it when that happens. And I know that it sounds corny, and I know that I didn't always believe it. And I practiced that anyway. And I've actually come to the place where I don't necessarily love it when that happens, but different versions of that statement are really handy, and they really take the edge off, and they really help me focus my energy where I want it to be and on my life the way I want my life to become, which is more loving. I want more love in my life. I want more experiences that I love. And so I don't give experiences that are unpleasant nearly as much energy as I used to. I used to obsess over situations, particularly with people or with things that I had done that I didn't like the outcome. And I judged myself. So, along with working with the inner critic, is changing our words and find for yourself. I can't tell you what your words are that are going to be like the kingpins, some of the easiest and or the most powerful for you to replace. But choose a phrase or two and say, that's a phrase that for right now I'm going to practice overwriting that phrase in my vocabulary, in my ways of speech, and allow that to become established and standard, and go from there. Choose a different phrase. Start to be aware of your words, the ways not only that you talk to yourself, like we talked about in day one, that inner critic, giving the inner critic a new vocabulary to work from, and then extending it from there. So there's also our physical world, our physical environment, and that can be the home that we live in, it can be the relationships that we have, it can be our diet, it can be the activities and behaviors that we engage in. The longer we've been doing a thing, the more established a habit is, then the more energy it has, and momentum that it has to keep us doing that thing. Well, you may or may not be someone who can do things cold turkey. I have a friend who can do stuff cold turkey, and it is, for me, like miraculous to see. And for me, I want to, I have to dance the dance, because I can do the kind of cold turkey thing, but then I have to be really careful because if I mess up just a little bit, I can be triggered into this black and white all or nothing thinking, and reminding ourselves that just because we didn't do the whole thing doesn't mean we didn't do a good thing. And it's just practicing overriding the old behaviors. And it occurs to me, by the way, if you have an addictive personality, which I understood as a young person that I did, and that had to do with codependency and all of the things. So I'm not sure how much of that was really real, but if you have a codependent personality, or um, not a code, if you have a dependency personality, an addictive personality, or an addictive issue in your life, I encourage you to seek professional help, because I love you and I have life experience and I have some wisdom, but I am not a professional. And one of the things we need to do for our self love is to get the help that we need. And if you're in a financial position where that's not an option for you, which I totally understand and identify with, there are so many online resources to help. There are wonderful people out on the internet. And if you need some help finding a professional resource, I tell you what, if you put a little bit of effort into that and you don't get the results that feel good and right to you, by all means, reach out to me and I will help you track down a resource. I won't do it for you, but I will help you in the process. That's a boundary, an example of a boundary, which is something that is so important for us because that is part of how we create the environment that is healthy for us to live in. So that's part of that toxicity and some of the behaviors that we can establish that aren't good for us. And we need to change them so that we're not trying to do everything for everyone else when we're not taking good care of ourselves. Prioritizing self-care, eliminating toxicity, which is those situations external to ourselves and the patterns and behaviors, the thoughts and the beliefs that we hold that support those toxic behaviors. We get to do both, and we can do both at the same time. Don't worry or be surprised if it's odd and awkward and doesn't feel good in the beginning, because of course it doesn't, because it's not the habit. It's not familiar. It's the energy and how to do that isn't established. You may stumble. You will probably stumble. And it's okay. It's okay. It may not feel good, and I understand, and I have empathy for that. I have compassion for that. But don't let it stop you. Don't let the fact that it doesn't feel good stop you from trying and stop you from practicing. Just like me and my friend. I'm like, I can't do it exactly the way that they do, but I can do it my way, and I can be inspired by their way of doing things, and to be reminded that just because I didn't do everything all the way that I wish I had doesn't mean that I'm not on the right track. So I hold that out for you. So we've talked about thoughts, we've talked about our physical reality, we've talked about words, we've talked about the fact that there are habits and patterns that are established and that we want to and we get to practice overriding them. Yes, I know that today I haven't given a lot of specific details. I will do that. But right now in this context, trying to keep it to 15 minutes because that's what I promised. If you have specific questions, please reach out to me. I am more than happy to put together a new video with more specifics about a specific part of this process. For now, it's time for me to sign off and share with you and remind you that you are loved. You are doing a great job, even if it doesn't feel like it. And if it does, by gosh, celebrate it, and celebrate it, please, with all of us, because we need each other. We need the modeling and the celebrating, just the inspiration of knowing that we are not in this alone. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I hope that you have felt loved. Blessings.